All right. Good afternoon. Doing this in the afternoon instead of the evening. We're going to move on to our next perspective, the ethical perspective, for the Black Horse over Bambara section. I noticed the last video I made was a little bit longer, but so I'm going to make this one a little bit shorter. But as I've said throughout the this entire process, some sections are going to be longer than others. So let's talk a little bit about the Black Horse over Bambara in regards to the ethical perspective. Once again, should this picture exist, and what are the ethics behind this picture? Now, as I've mentioned in the cultural section of this, is there is some elements of propaganda that are connected to this, especially with World War II. And so when someone in Britain would see this, we would immediately kind of connect it with some of the images from World War II that were more propagandistic. Now, the Spitfire, being a very popular airplane at that time, was something that was used quite a bit in propaganda. So you can see here the Spitfire being used in regards to actually that's the Hurricane. This is the Spitfire, but the airplanes of the RAF were used in recruitment of soldiers. So hey, this beautiful thing in the sky, this evidence of British ingenuity. You can be a part of this by becoming a pilot, or by funding, which was this series of posters down here. These were funding, so which is why the Black Horse over Bambara historically existed, because it was funded by the members of Lloyd's Bank, and a number of aircraft were purchased by towns, and money was given to them in an effort to back them up. Now, this was a series of posters. We'd have Spitfires in the Battle of Britain, and then we would have pictures also of on action, and then bombers even kind of doing their work. Now, propaganda, British propaganda in particular, used the image of the Spitfire and the pilots in multiple ways. So recruiting and funding themes were one thing, but they were also used in regards to their work and service themes. So one of the famous images of women working or going into the factories, of course, in America, we have Rosie and the Riveter, which of course was used to kind of get motivation up for workers. We see the airplanes in the top left-hand corner here of the women come into the factories and help produce these planes. Women were also encouraged to join the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, or the WAF, so that they too could participate in helping with this too. And then there were the themes of resistance and victory, allowing for that element of motivation to kind of come through. So the images of the RAF were placed in pictures, of course, above Sir Winston Churchill, whose voice was one of the primary voices that kind of helped Britain get through its era. And then also referencing to victories. So at the end of the Battle of Britain, the Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, had said, "Never was so much owed by so many to so few," in reference to the RAF pilots who defended the British skies over invasion. Now, there are different types of propaganda as well that were produced in Britain at the time, and these ones had a little bit more to do with anti-German or Japanese. I've got a couple of examples here of anti-German propaganda right here. The first two kind of really referencing Hitler, but the third one referencing more of the Germans in the past, like as a people. We've beat them before, we've beat them again. Now, these types of propaganda images, there's a definite kind of switch over to where we're pointing fingers at something as an enemy, or as something to be beaten. Whereas these previous ones here, these were coming together as a group, serving, funding, helping with resistance and victory. Whereas these ones, once again, have a lot more to do with pointing the finger at somebody else and attacking something else, which leads us into this idea of the ethics of propaganda. The ethics of propaganda really kind of bases itself on the emotional appeal of the image. A lot of propaganda has to do with stirring up emotional feelings. Like, I'm going to become really angry at this, and so I'm going to be moved to doing something, or I'm going to feel very proud of something, and I'm going to be moved to do something or to believe something, and so forth. And so the emotional appeal is key to propaganda. We've talked about this in class as well. But this can also get into something called ethical fading. Whereas if we start feeling so much national pride over something, so for example, if someone might see a Spitfire, and just hypothetically a Spitfire, and say, wow, I'm so proud over that. And then we read a story of how a squadron of Spitfires shot up a poor innocent town and killed lots of children. Well, we might, hopefully not, but we might allow our pride to get in the way of, wait a second, that was wrong. And these are some elements that kind of come up all the time in war when we look at the actions of our side, quote unquote, our side, as to oppose the other side. And well, the other side is wrong and we're right at all times, because often that emotional appeal of the nationalistic elements get in the way. Now, is this at play in the image of the black horse over Bambara? Well, an interesting way of approaching this would be looking at the 6 ethical perspectives that we've looked at. I'm not going to go through all of them, but if we were to look at all of these different philosophies, we could kind of point out some things. Now, looking at the Spitfire as a source of national pride, and a source, as a symbol of British ingenuity, is that a right or wrong thing? There's nothing wrong with that. Just like people who collect pictures or make models of German war tanks, and as the Panzer tank here in the bottom left, and the top right hand corner right there, which is the battleship Bismarck, one of the largest battleships ever made. If somebody has these things in their room, are we saying that, oh, you support Nazi ideology? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So a good way of kind of looking at Postlethwaite in regards to his production of art, and if he only produced things that were nationalistic in regards to British elements, that might say, well, there might be some problems here. But does he equally approach both of these? Is there a sort of a golden mean approach to this? And going to his website, we might argue that there is. These are prints that he sells of his paintings, and as you can see here, this is just a selection. The RAF, the Royal Air Force, the British Air Force, of course, planes in action, the Luftwaffe, which is the German Air Force, highlighting the airplanes, even shooting down, Allied planes. Then we have the Royal Military Collection, which features a selection of both, and then other World War II, which includes American right here, some Japanese, and even some Soviet. So Postlethwaite does approach his artwork in a very, we're not going to promote a nationalistic agenda. He's promoting the beauty of the aircraft themselves, and the time period. And so while he's doing this, he is making money from this, so there might be a hedonistic approach to this. But if all he was interested in was making money, being a British painter, maybe he would only focus in on British planes. But no, he has quite a different element there. So he does play um, this balancing act between trying to promote some nationalistic elements, which do come up in their imagery, but focusing more on the technical beauty of the plane themselves. Now, I would continue further in a deeper analysis of the ethics, looking at the other philosophies as well, seeing if any of them can be, kind of come to play. I would say Golden Mean for this one is a good one. Well, maybe I wouldn't necessarily say hedonistic, but because he doesn't make huge amounts of money off of his artwork. Um, but I would then look at the other philosophies that we've discussed in class, and maybe highlight a few more of them, in a way to look deeper at the ethics of this image right here. All right. So that is the ethical perspective of this of our visual analysis. Keep working away, and I look forward to our next episode. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and ask. Good luck.